What's up, plant lovers? Devin is here, and today we're going to be doing an update video on our creeping thyme. I planted this creeping thyme 3 years ago, and I've had, it's been a relatively popular video, I think, because people recognize how invaluable creeping thyme is for the landscape. You can see it's a wonderful ground covering plant that really just transforms areas that you would typically use mulch or like gravel, and it covers it with this nice thick dense layer of matted foliage. The matted foliage is nice and dense and does help keep some of the weeds at bay, which is also very helpful. So if you are looking for that original video where I show you guys how to get it planted and all the sort of cultural care and requirements, go check that original video out right there. But this video is to show you guys how the progress has been made over the last few years. So let's take a look. So as you can see, it is filling in really nicely. I planted each of the plants about, I would say, 24 inches away from one another, and these plants look like they have more or less reached their full capacity. Now, we're in the middle of May, and you can see there is some growth that hasn't really filled out from the winter time. It kind of looks a little bit dead like that, and that does happen from time to time, but typically new foliage will quickly fill that out and really cover any sort of bare spots like that. Now, really and truly, I think these have reached their full growing capacity. Now, I was hoping they would fill out just a little bit more, but since I do believe they have kind of reached their full capacity, I'll show you guys here in a minute how we can actually divide these established clumps and transplant them so that we can continue to increase the amount of ground coverage from each and every one of our plants. Now, one of the main reasons why I fell in love with these plants originally was because of their ability to handle the foot traffic. So you can see I planted them around these flagstones, and they really just effortlessly have filled out all of these little gaps. And so I have a nice path that goes from my sidewalk over to the grassy areas, and planting this here between these flagstones is a really great way of still increasing the amount of plant life with a plant that can handle me stepping on top of it every single day, and it still looks good. So what I have growing here is the Thymus pseudolagunosis, which is like the really nice woolly thyme. It has a really nice soft texture. It almost feels like cashmere. It's really, really nice, and it has a nice, wonderful pink flower in the summertime. Now, this is my third year having them here. I've not yet gotten any flowers, but hopefully in the next month or so, these will flower for the first time. If so, we'll make another update about our creeping thyme. Now let me show you guys how to divide these plants if you're trying to increase the amount of creeping thyme in your garden from your pre-existing plants. All right, so here I have a nice little section right here, and what I'm really gonna do, I'm just gonna go right in the middle of it. Well, the first thing you wanna do is you wanna kind of find where the actual roots are coming from so that you're not kind of digging and dividing a section that doesn't have any roots. When you're making divisions, there's always two essential components to each division section in order for it to be viable. Number one, they need to have roots, and number two, they need to have top growth on top. If you divide and a section has roots but no top growth, it's not gonna work. If you divide and a section has top growth but no roots, that's not gonna work either. So right here is kind of a nice little central point of this little clump, and I'm just gonna take a little hand trowel and just dig it out. And the great thing is that this section that we just cut off will now regenerate and actually create more growth out of this section. So it's not like you're just kind of dividing and then this is going to stay the same. No, this will actually start to regrow. And you want to kind of fill this section in with some ground, some potting mix if you have any on hand, just so you don't have that little blank hole. And here is this nice divided section. Now this is, you can see here is top growth, and under here you can see there are roots. So check one, top growth, check two, roots. That means this is going to be a viable section to be replanted. Then from here, it's just as easy as picking a new spot in your garden that you want to plant this in. So I think right here is perfectly fine for me. So I'm just going to dig a hole, just like always, and I'm going to get this planted in. and you have just increased your stock of creeping thyme. Now this, as a newly planted section, will double, triple, quadruple in size. That previous section will also continue to regrow from where we cut it. When we cut it, it kind of like activates in it to regrow. So that section is gonna grow bigger again. This section is gonna grow bigger again. So we have just, you know, for free, increased the amount of creeping thyme in our garden. And of course, you want to make sure and water this in nicely now that it's been planted. So really and truly, I have fallen in love with this woolly thyme. You can see the way I've used it. I've used it in between a repetition of Shasta daisies and lavender, coreopsis, and echinacea, some hardy geraniums. And the way that it kind of harmonizes this entire section of my garden is flawless, if you ask me. So if you're looking for a wonderful plant to really create a nice unifying energy in a hot, sunny, dry garden bed, creeping thyme is a great option. Well, since I started growing that creeping thyme 3 years ago, I have added a few more kinds of creeping thyme into my garden. And there's a little bit of confusion when you're online looking for the right species that you want to grow. You'll see everything from Thymus serpyllum, Thymus praecox, Thymus coccineus, Thymus pseudolagunosis. And there's a lot of different kind of confusion regarding what the exact species is, and that can make it a little bit challenging for you to actually choose which one that you want to be growing. Now you saw that the woolly thyme that I had over there is really nice, thick, dense, very low growing. And the other two kinds that I have growing here, right here I have the red variety, which I believe is Thymus coccineus or Thymus praecox. It's a red flowered variety. And you can see that the growth of this is a little bit different than that really thick woolly one because it is a little bit thicker in its stature. And I actually think I prefer this one because that extra thickness does help keep the weeds even more at bay. And I think it has a really nice natural energy for my Zone 6B garden here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And then the third variety that I have growing here is a white flowered variety. You can see I have them growing in these clumps all along this border. And the white variety is said to be a little bit more tolerant of shade. So I have this kind of by my river birch tree, so it doesn't get as much sun as those other, as the red or the pink flowered woolly thyme. And this growth is really thick and dense, as you can see. It's not quite as fluffy as the red one, but it's not quite as matte forming as the woolly thyme. So it's kind of in between somewhere. But as I continue to grow them, test them, see which ones I like the most, I will keep you guys informed so that you can make the best decision for your garden. Anyways, I hope you found this video update on the creeping thyme helpful. But if you do still have any further questions or comments, make sure to leave them below and I'll do my best to answer each and every one of them. Don't forget, subscribe to our channel, like this video if you did enjoy the content, and I will see you guys shortly.